Good afternoon, everybody. Thank you very much for coming over and giving me the opportunity to share why I love the job I have, basically, and why I enjoy my career. So the title I chose was a play of Allison's P3. So it's Plantlet Propagation. So I thought, oh, P3, let me find something. I'm doing an F3 for the P3. So I thought, oh, finding fulfillment in floriculture. We've talked about floriculture this morning, and one of the sponsors of the workshop is the Hawaii Floriculture and Nursery Association. So my question is, how many of you have heard of the term floriculture before? Show of hands? Oh, good, I'm preaching to the choir. So most of you know what floriculture is. And in that, I'll just say it's the cultivation and management of ornamentals, especially flowering plants. Many of you are involved with FFA, and FFA also defines floriculture as a discipline of horticulture. There's one thing, though, with the term horticulture. And Heather mentioned this morning about Seed Your Future. And one of the reasons Seed Your Future was established, too, was that amongst middle school children, the study had found out that not a single middle schooler knew what the word horticulture meant. It's like, what is horticulture? And then when the kids were exposed to what was horticulture, they thought, oh, plantology. Plant science. So that was one revealing information to find out that for us, maybe we know horticulture is, but your students may not know what horticulture means. So we're trying to, there is a movement amongst teachers, amongst horticulturists, and as Heather mentioned this morning, Seed Your Future, to increase horticulture as an acceptable term. It's not a dirty word, it's not a foreign word or sounds Greek, but it's a cool field, and it's part of our job, part of our duty to let other people know and the next generation know that, hey, this is a really cool job, it's a really cool field. So basically, horticulture, it's all about plants, and it affects everybody. Not a single person is not affected by horticulture. So as I mentioned earlier, floriculture is a subset of horticulture, and there are professional organizations that deal with it. This field. One of the professional organizations is the American Floral Endowment, which Heather also mentioned this morning. And there's this brochure is inside your bag. So I'll project this, and you have a hard copy on it. And one of the cool things about floriculture is I really like the title of this brochure. It says, "We inspire a beautiful world." What's not to like about that? So that's one cool thing about a career in the floral industry. We inspire a beautiful world. So this brochure also talks about different career opportunities in the field. This morning, we heard from the Inouye family about life as a commercial grower and a floral wholesaler. Later this afternoon, you'll hear from Kathleen, who was a retail florist prior to her retirement. And Andy Kaufman spoke about research. And there's Robert will be talking about research. And I myself will be talking about research as careers in floriculture. So how did I get into the field that's so exciting? This is what I do now. I'm a flower breeder at the University of Hawaii, and my goal in life is to produce flowers that our growers can grow, and that will help people, help the economy, and make everything nice around us, you know, make us less stressed, make us appreciate nice things. Have flowers for special occasions, proms, funerals, weddings, you name it. Flowers are part of our life, whether we like it or not. So on the top photo is, the top panel is my work with, the work that I'm doing with dendrobium orchids, this one. And I'm happy to say this is one of our products, UH-800, Inouye Mist. So definitely fulfilling to be wearing a lei that we took data on, we did the seeds, and I'm very personally involved, and this is really cool to wear because I spent years with this too, with other people, of course, on our team. On the second panel is the work we do with anthuriums. This morning you potted out anthuriums, and some of you asked, where did it come from? What did it start from? This is actually what we call plantlets. So these are, before you got what you had in your box, this is what it looked like a few generations before. So these were derived from leaf tissue that we cut up, and it took some time to get to where it was to be able for you to get these plant materials, plant out, and hopefully flower in 18 to 24 months. Okay. How did I get a start? I grew up with a mother who loved orchids. I grew up in the Philippines, and she grew Philippine native orchids in our backyard. I'm the one trying, I'm not sure if I'm trying to grab or trying to point, but whatever it is, I thank my father for taking this shot because I didn't know that this shot would be a defining moment in my life. So that's me with Phalaenopsis orchids. And remember, I worked with Phalaenopsis because a few slides will show you why it means a lot to me. So when I was a kid, my mom grew native orchids, and when I was about 5th grade, so around middle school age, she said washing pots was important. So she made me wash pots for our orchids, and she also grew hono orchids, the hanging dendrobiums that you see. So she'd cut up the canes, and during summer, my job was to mount it on those fern slabs. So she goes, here are small nails, here's a piece of wire, this is how you mount, go. And so that's what our yard looked like. That's my younger sister. So I grew up washing pots and mounting orchids. She also grew some anthuriums, so that was part of our, that was part of growing up, and I thought that was fun. I could be outside and play and have beautiful flowers on the side. So by the time I was in high school, so having those influences around me with flowers, by the time I was in my junior year in high school, I decided I wanted to grow orchids, and I wanted to do orchids as a career. I was fortunate enough that we lived in a community that was just outside the agricultural college. So that meant I didn't have to leave our home to go to college. So I could just wake up, run to school. I mean, walking distance, really blessed to have that opportunity to go to school and study orchids. So my senior thesis was on micropropagation tissue culture of Phalaenopsis orchid. So from young kid time to college, that was pretty much where I was going and what I wanted to do. In my college years, I was fortunate enough to have a very good mentor who did orchid work. And she received an advanced degree from the University of Florida. Her advisor at the time eventually moved to the University of Hawaii, and I thought, wow, if the higher education can be achieved at the University of Hawaii, I want to go there. So she wrote a recommendation letter. I managed to get an assistantship, so I was able to go on to grad school. And and study under Dr. Haruyuki Kamemoto. He is considered the father of floriculture in Hawaii, and many of the varieties he developed, both for dendrobium orchids and anthuriums, are found in the Neotropica book that you have in your bag. So when you see the word Inouye, that's his brainchild. So Uni for university and Y for Hawaii. So I was so fortunate to learn under him and be mentored by him. So I'm his last graduate student. So he calls me one of his bookends. So when I was in high school, I was really fascinated by biology, particularly genetics. So I thought for graduate school, I want to do flower genetics. So I learned about ploidy and chromosome numbers, learned how to count chromosomes. Took me forever to get this perfect picture. This might be the only picture I have of my root tips, and I squashed it, so all those little bumps are chromosomes. And at the time, there were no digital cameras, so to count chromosomes, I just had to color. Believe me, it was like still life. So that was fun, and I wanted to see, and my research was about how do chromosome numbers and chromosome levels affect dendrobium orchids. When I was in grad school, I took this interesting class called Agriculture Systems Analysis. Little did I know that it would affect my life now, because in this class, we were asked to look at a food or agricultural situation, look at the activities for the participants. So I chose the dendrobium cut flower industry. And for me to get the data, I attended a cut flower conference, talked to growers, and also looked at the existing literature. So I kind of learned who are the players in the industry, who are the growers, what are the challenges involved. So there's like money is a problem, for capital improvement, you need marketing. I even have Department of Ag over there. So, you know, the previous studies or this particular exercise really helped me understand the industry once I got to become a participant in the floriculture industry. Okay. So the paper I wrote for class eventually went, my teacher really liked it, and she included it in a book she published on agriculture and resource management. So that was really gratifying to see that one semester piece of work find its utility to be included in a book. So I did my undergrad, I went on to graduate school, and I was fortunate enough to be hired as a researcher, first as a research associate and eventually assistant researcher with the flower breeding program at the University of Hawaii. There are many aspects in my position. I do research and teaching. So I'd like to talk about a little bit about the joys of developing new varieties. Because we worked on anthurium today, I'll talk a little bit more about how long it takes to develop a new anthurium variety. Anthuriums are not the easiest or the fastest to develop. If you look at the chart I have here, from pollination, that's from the seedling, to when a new variety is developed and released, it takes about 15 years. So patience is definitely a virtue, but man, the rewards are really great. So 15 years is about what we're looking at. And from seedlings, when we make the fruit and we germinate it, it takes about 12 years before a variety is released. It takes about 6 months for the fruit to develop, and then by 24 months, you will see the first flowers. But the first flowers are not indicative of what it will look like. It goes through a juvenile process. So we'll flower it, and then if something looks interesting, we'll put the material in tissue culture, similar to what you see. So this is actually the beginning. So this is the same. Look at the dates. we placed the leaf on May 2005, and this is what we get by January 2006. Just a small plantlet. And so it does take time for the plantlets to develop. And that's why it takes about 3 years before we can get the plantlets transferred over to what we call advanced testing. Advanced testing is the part where we test the materials with commercial growers to see if it's acceptable. So they will get about 200 plantlets, similar to what you had. Think of that, they have 200 of those small plantlets. They'll grow them out, and then they look at different production characteristics. So we will send something about the one on the right, similar to what you potted out. That will get sent out. They'll be planted out in the field, and we check with the growers. Like we'll be checking with, I think you'll be checking in with Judy with the pictures of your plants. We check in with the growers about once a year to see how the varieties are doing. So because different locations may have affect the performance of the varieties or the selections, we don't call it varieties yet. We test it in at least 4 locations. And the growers give us feedback. Does it grow well? Does it get diseases? Is it easy to pack? Do they keep well? You can talk to Eric and his sons more because they're one of our cooperators. And so once we do the advanced test, the growers can also test market the variety. And it's really interesting to see some of these. This one just got released. But this is an arrangement at the opening of Shirokias, the village. So one of my cool things to do is I usually hit any openings of stores, and I try to see what are the flowers they're using. So it's really cool. It's like a game. I know that. That's UH 1991. Doesn't have a name yet. And then I start taking pictures. So believe me, when Shirokiya opened, I didn't want to go. My family said, oh, let's check it out. And then when I got there and I saw the different flowers, they had to drag me out. It's like, come on. But I said, wait, I know this one. I know this one. So it's really fulfilling to see the products that you help develop on display. I think Eric mentioned that, and I really made a note of that. He said, the feeling of accomplishment and satisfaction to see your plants on display, that is why we do what we do. I get that. This one really got me, and when I go out and see our varieties. So this is just the opening of Shirokiya, and I got all excited. In 2017, I was fortunate enough to join the American Institute of Floral Designers convention in Seattle. Think of it as being the Super Bowl of floral design. And I'm getting emotional here. One of the most gratifying things I saw really moved me was to see the products that we helped develop on the big stage in designs that I wouldn't even have dreamt of. So it's like, there's people there in the, I think you can see how big the scale is, and to see designs using the product that you had seen in the greenhouse, in the lab, in the cooperators field, being accepted and used by the professionals is really very fulfilling. And so part of the game too is to see, what is it? And I go, ooh, there's UH 1991. And again, that makes, it just reinforces what a good decision, in my opinion, to advance test and go on with this variety. What's even better? When you see it in magazines. So this is Florist Review, which is the trade journal for florists. And this was, I think, last year or 2 years ago. There was a feature on buying Hawaiian, and it says American-grown tropicals. And they talked about exotic touches, but there again, it's like UH 1991. And I'm thinking, wow. And that's UH 800, I believe, for the white dendrobiums. Another game I like to play is to go to different flower shows around town. Every 3 years, the Garden Club has a big show at the Honolulu Academy of Art, or I can't remember the new name, but the Art Academy has a big flower show. And this is Tropic Fire, aka UH 1245, that won the Blue Ribbon Best in Show. Amazing. And then once in a while, I look at advertisements, either online or in magazines. And the vase on the left was being sold by the Museum of Modern Art, so MoMA.
The yellow one?
Yeah. So it's like, and that's UH 1181, Tropic Line. It's also, I believe, in your Neotropica book. So you see these things, I'm thinking, wow, MoMA featured a design with our anthurium. It really, you know, if you have students that succeed, these are like my students that succeeded. So that's one thing that really gives great fulfillment, great joy, and validates what we do. Okay. And so we're grateful to funding that we have received from the Hawaii Department of Ag. The plantlets you received are all part of a project we had that was sponsored by the Department of Ag, the state legislature, and the Hawaii Floriculture and Nursery Association. So again, teamwork and having a great team is quite fulfilling too. Now I'll change gears. So I talked about the research aspect. Now I want to talk about the teaching aspect that we do. We do teaching formally, meaning through the university, and informally. The USDA, US Department of Ag, has a program called Ag Discovery. Are you familiar with it? Okay, so we've been part of Ag Discovery teaching students a module on orchid pollination. So they come to our greenhouse for about 2 hours. They come in. We talk about orchids. If you see, there's a flask down here. That's a flask of vodka with vanilla pods. I tell the students, you like vanilla ice cream? And they go, yeah, vanilla's good. Do you know vanilla's an orchid? And it's like, oh. And then you see that fruit? This is vanilla. So they smell the bottle of vanilla, infused vanilla. And then we talk about the parts of the flower, and they learn how to pollinate orchids. So this past year was, many of you are familiar about what happened in June. Well, first the Kilauea did some major damage in May and June, and by June, a number of the orchid areas were covered by lava in Kapoho. So as part of our presentation to the Ag Discovery kids, we talked about that the orchid seed pods we produce are given to the growers. The growers grow plants, and this is one farm on the right that was what it looked like prior to being covered. So you could see it's like an ocean of UH 800. And this is the owner of the farm on the left. There was a video of his story on the Star Advertiser. So the kids from Ag Discovery this past year were all from the mainland. So the video gave them background about what it takes to farm and the challenges and his story. And you can even hear the coqui frogs in the background chirping, making their familiar sound as he told his story about how lava affected, the lava flow affected his business. So we played that, and we told the kids, the students, okay, now we're going to help the industry. We're going to make seed pods that the growers can plant once they have the recovery process. So we went to the greenhouse, made our pollinations, and on your Neotropica books again, all the students get a Neotropica book, and we tell them, on page whatever it is, you are going to make Inouye Mist, Inouye Royale, and Wally Morazani, also known as UH-1427, UH-1081, and UH-800. So all of the students, we told them, this is one of the students, I don't know her name, she wrote her initials KHS, and so we take a picture, we send it to the chaperone, and say, this is 1 week or 2 weeks after the students pollinated, it's successful. And then in October, the seeds were ready. So that's the one on the upper right. And on the bottom left, those were seed pods that were sent out to industry. And these went to the growers on the Big Island. So they get the story, they get it. We're pollinating, we're helping the industry. And so that was really gratifying for them to see from a story of a farmer, orchid grower, who was devastated by lava, and then to see and to have seeds that will help them recover from the damage. So that's my story with Ag Discovery. Another story I'd like to share is we had an experimental class. Now, this is on the college level. We had an experimental class on floral arts. So this was taught this past spring 2018. But prior to that, in fall 2017, I taught a flower and foliage production class. And so 3 of the students in the floral arts class were in the flower production class. So it was a nice transition because in the fall, they made plant propagules, and then by the spring, they made different types of artwork using flowers. So the students thought when we were doing pressed flowers, which was one of our first activities, they said, oh, we should put this on display. And we're like, if that's what you want, we will do floral display. So we had a display over at the Hamilton Library. So it was a full-on display. These are our students. They're posing in front of their botanical jewelry project. So these were projects made before. You have photos of that and some samples in the glass cases. They labeled the names. They knew what they were doing. They put together the pieces of jewelry they had, and then we put up wall displays as well as different pieces of art. So on the upper left is some are the projects that the students made. So this was floral art, which is unusual. It's short-lived. We could only do it for about a month. But we received positive feedback from the people who had gone to the library, thinking it was something different to see, to have live plants as well as floral products in otherwise a sterile, quiet environment. So the students in the fall planted these. These are leaf cuttings of succulents, and these were used for floral jewelry in the spring. These were plantlets that they had separated in the fall that they used for the CTAHR banquet in May. So they made dish gardens. And you see those black pots? Those are just holders. Because once the displays were made, they had batteries. Battery-powered lanterns to put for floral display centerpieces. So that was probably one of the first times that the attendees really wanted to take home the centerpieces. So our students were who participated were at the banquet, and they really were happy to see the products they made well received. So these are the different ways floriculture has been very fulfilling as a career choice. And with that, I'd like to thank the many people who have been behind all the work we've been doing all through the years. Thank you.